Y'all ready to go for a ride?
That's all it is at this point. It's just a motorcycle and chaos. Good.
Right, and we're rolling right on the road. Woohoo! Yeah.
So we threw a chain. Another spot back in here. Woohoo! Sandy, sandy, fun stuff. This is a nice little dispersed area here too. I've camped here a few times. We usually camp around this area. There's this trail right here. Matter of fact, I think we might just stop here today. Let's find a nice shady spot here under the trees. And I think this is a good place to stop. And let's go on foot from here. Because if I just ride up there, you're gonna miss seeing some of the adventures, some of the interesting things. So, under the shade of this large oak tree, I'm gonna park. Oh wow, look at that. Look at the carpet of yellow out there, all those poppies. Can you see that? Streak of yellow. Right across the low spot there. These grasslands are beautiful. All right, let me get my gear off and we'll continue our adventure. I'll see you shortly. And they held up in these mountains, fought for their existence, and it was a pretty crazy time in history. But we're gonna go see where that is. Through this gate, down the trail. Oops. There we go. It's like deer tracks along this trail. And what a beautiful day to be out here. This isn't a long hike. It's a very short hike. We're going over there where those big rocks are. And there's something over there. Oh. Tarantula hawk just buzzed me. The weather's starting to heat up now. The days are starting to get a little warm, but over there we'll find some shade. And let's continue along this trail for a little bit, and we'll get to where the rocks are. We are here. Cochise stronghold. Now, this is a place where Cochise held off the white men for a long time in here, and there's a lot of sign of inhabitation by people going back to those days and beyond, back to even in BC, 1200, 1500 BC. The Mogollon people were around this area. And here I'm going to show you some sign where you start seeing sign in here. Oh. And yeah, this is where it happened. This is where Cochise held off the white man. Look at this giant rock. How cool is that big rock? What do you think something like that weighs? Well, at least a few tons. It's being held up at a precarious angle and all those little rocks. And get the shadow over here. You can see right down under it there. Beautiful land, a beautiful place. We haven't seen any water yet. Just don't rain like it used to. Big, massive rock. And here we are at a place called Council Rocks. Now this is an ancient site. There's petroglyphs here. We'll see the petroglyphs right here. And let's take a look here. Pictures you see were made hundreds of years ago. They have faded with time and are now very fragile. These red and orange petrographs are reminiscent of designs used by prehistoric Mogollon peoples roughly 1,000 years ago. Some may have been added in early historic times by Apache visitors. The boulder formations around you have served as a shelter by many who passed through this area. The grinding mortars on the large granitic boulders to your left and the two within the shelter area were used with a pestle for grinding nuts and seeds. The Dragoon Mountains were part of the Apache chief Cochise's stronghold, where his people could elude pursuing military troops. Council Rocks, the natural amphitheater formation to the south, may have been a meeting place. Some say that it was near this spot that Cochise made peace with General O. Howard in 1872, although the actual location was probably at the northern end of the range, near Dragoon Springs. This site is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Please respect this place of the past. Of course we will. And we will. Mogollon were a prehistoric culture of Native American peoples here in the area of Arizona, New Mexico, and Sonora, Mexico, including parts of West Texas. They thrived here in the Archaic period from around 200 AD to approximately the days of the Spanish arrival in the area, somewhere between the 1450s and the 1550s. Although we don't know what they called themselves, their name is sadly lost to time. The name we call them, the Mogollon, comes from the Mogollon Mountains of New Mexico, approximately central to their cultural range. That sounds like a place we might need to explore along with some other Mogollon sites we'll visit on this channel in the future. And those Mogollon Mountains were called so after a Spanish fellow named Don Juan Ignacio Flores Mogollon, the governor of New Spain from 1712 to 1715. Folks, this place is so rich with history that we can't even tell it all in one sitting. So let's just look at the Mogollon culture today. Now the Mogollon, well, they sure do have a history. It's all speculative. They didn't have a written language. But at most recent estimates, they're descendants of migrants that came north from current-day Mexico around 3,500 BC. At earliest, the culture could have possibly emerged from occupation of the area from the late Pleistocene. around 9000 BC. It's mind-blowing to even fathom those depths of time where a dozen or 2 years ago feels ancient from our perspective. Some even say they're descended from early pit house builders we call the Cochise culture, who came to the area around 5000 BC. Now, if you ask me, I think it's a bit of all of the above. History is messy like that, and this corridor has pretty much always been a sort of trade route for all the desert archaic traditional cultures. The earliest Mogollon built small circular or oval pit houses, a few feet deep, with a central smoke hole to shelter about 4 or so people from around 200 AD to 700 AD. A sloped roof of all sorts of native materials, sometimes even large flat rocks, were used. After this time, their pit houses changed to a larger, rectangular, shallower, more vertical wall structure of wood posts and adobe walls up until about 1000 AD, the approximate age of this site. Compared to the scattered dwellings of the early pit house era, these were more standardized and organized into small villages. The trend continued after about 1000 AD when the Mogollon began to abandon pit houses altogether in favor of a more modern and above-ground Pueblo style, being above ground entirely and much more complex with multiple rooms and sometimes even multi-story buildings made from rock, adobe, and wood. They were now built around a central plaza, but there were still pit houses. They had what archaeologists describe as ritual spaces, kivas resembling the small round pit houses of old. We can only imagine their cultural philosophy on preserving their culture's old ways. Maybe the subterranean nature was an important part, being closer to the earth. Maybe it was a historic to them, like our nearby Wild West reenactments. Or maybe they thought they were traveling back in time to their past and their ancestors. Less like these archaeologists, without knowing the story, we can only speculate, try to imagine how they lived and how they dealt with climate change. The 3 eras of their culture defined by building type also coincide with climate change. In an even drier and hotter world, the villages and settlements of the second era are found closer to what were more permanent water sources at the time. Farming they did was more subsistence farming in the wetter first era, a time when one could throw some seeds out in the ground here and they'd grow. In the second era, community farming emerged, and a more heavy reliance on maize, beans, and squash developed in these small communities. And dry farming using water conservation methods were part of this era. During the third Pueblo era, things changed again with the medieval warm period kicking off about 900 AD and getting even drier, but also beginning the cycle of heavy summer monsoon rains, bringing seasonal deluges to the desert. Crop failures forced more out of the villages to form the more centralized cities of this age, with central plazas and more available labor to farm a shorter season and preserve food. This is the era where I believe desert living really became a hard life. Maybe their kivas and whatever celebrations, rituals, or ceremonies they bore witness to were a sort of prayer to return to that wetter past of the first pit house era. But unfortunately for them, there would be no return. The Great Drought from 1276 to 1299 AD triggered region-wide cultural collapse. From here, all the way to Chaco Canyon and Mesa Verde, throughout the whole Southwest, the delicate balance of life in the desert was once again disrupted. It became too much to bear for many of these cultures, and for the Mogollon, well, they abandoned their villages after about 1300 AD. Even after the Great Drought, things were never the same. It was even drier, the monsoons more unpredictable, and the remaining groups of Mogollon joined and merged with the Zuni, Hopi, and other Puebloan groups that survived the cultural collapse. Folks, this here often untold tale is a story of a culture that fought for their way of life against the climactic change of the desert, adapting, surviving, banding together into cities, only for the last of the generations of the people we call the Mogollon to be confronted with a literal climate doomsday, the end of their world, their nation, their civilization that arose from the struggle to survive in an increasing drought. But some, they survived their end times and became the migrants and climate refugees of the great culture collapse. It's just one of the many stories of this amazing and beautiful land that we'll explore in future videos on this channel. ancient expression. Somebody created something, and now over 1,000 years later, somebody else is viewing it, appreciating their art. A whole different time. Echoes of the past. All right, folks. So that was a look at Council Rocks. They're behind us. And some of the history of Cochise County, of Arizona, of America, of pre-America, of ancient peoples. And we're going to head back to the bike, and we're going to continue our ride in this beautiful land. That scene is amazing. It's special out here. There's a real magical energy to this place. It's majestic. It's one of those places that are, it's not too well known, but kind of off the radar for people. There's a lot more famous places, but this is, as far as I'm concerned, kind of a place everybody should come try to visit if they can. Now this here is buffalo gourd. This stuff grows into the little watermelons that you see a lot of times on the side of the road in Arizona. That little butterfly is pollinating it. But this stuff grows into something that looks like a little mini watermelon. But it is not a mini watermelon. It is nasty inside, it is bitter, and a horrible tasting substance. And most native reports I can find used it medicinally. And they probably just thought it was good medicine because it tasted so bad. Now it's hot. It's about 11 a.m. and it is getting pretty warm in the desert out here. The sun is high in the sky. You get a little bit of shade coming up here in the trees. And then I think we're gonna head back home and call this the rest of our trip home the adventure for today. Hope y'all have a great time coming on these adventures with me. Whew, I'm a little out of breath. It's hot out here. It's hiked up a hill in the sun. There's a tarantula hawk just buzzed me again. And my bike is maybe 100 yards out that way. Under a big old oak tree. And what a place, huh? Look at it. What a place. Such a magical place this is. The little mini wonderland of rocks that is Cochise Stronghold and the Dragoon Mountains. So it's an awesome place to come adventure and explore. And I encourage you all to get out there and do it. Make your own adventures. Come out here. The smell that I'm smelling right now is just fresh air and nature. And it is absolutely beautiful. And I think you should come out and make all your own adventures just like I do. So, thanks for watching. There's the creepy gate. Throw that chain over there one-handed. We'll latch that gate. And I think I'm gonna have a little mini picnic and just eat an apple, and then we'll hit the road, head on back. And then tomorrow, well, tomorrow I think I got to do things in town, but the tomorrow after the tomorrow, we'll have another adventure. So stay tuned for that, and thanks for watching, folks. Have a great day. There's just a carpet of yellow out there. All those flowers. What a beautiful place this is. We're having quite the adventure today. And it's not a hard, extreme adventure, but we saw a lot of history. Saw a lot of natural beauty. The things nature creates is just astounding to me. That's what stirs my soul, seeing the things that nature comes up with, something that all the humans on earth can combine could never create 1% of. Oh, hi there, buddy. So, folks, I was just leaning against this tree, looking out onto the meadows, pondering the world. And this little feller here just came slithering up just about under my feet. Just hunting, minding his own business. Or her own business, I'm not sure. But I heard a little rustle. I looked down, and there it was. Out exploring just like I am. You see how much that blends in. This is where snakes are hiding when you're out walking. Why you gotta be watchful for them. It's hiding under that little patch of undergrowth. Settled all in there now, waiting for ambush. We're gonna fire up the old Ratzilla here, and we're gonna head back out of here and head home. It's gonna be a fun ride out of here. There's a lot of sand, and just a nice, fun, swoopy road coming out of here to carve around on in the sand. I won't disturb you, little guy. Have a great day. And here we go. We're back on the road. Now, there's a lot of other places we can come explore out here, and we will at some point. Woohoo, that sand is slippery in some of these spots. And we will come explore more out here, and there's a ton to see and do. So on next trips, on subsequent trips, we'll explore more of the history of Cochise County. Cochise County is so historically rich. There's legend and lore everywhere. All the way from the ancients up until, outlaws and lawmen. All the drama, all the human drama that played out in this remote, beautiful place out in the Arizona desert. All right, folks, looks like that's the end of the road for our adventure. Thanks for coming along on these adventures with me. And if you want to see more of these adventures, like, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one. Have a great day, everyone.